Hey, it's Doc Vinyl again on Record Time. Today's band that we're going to do a countdown on and talk about is Cream. I'm sorry to have them on. I have to turn it off, of course, because I'm not supposed to have that on the videos, but that was, of course, Tales of Brave Ulysses, one of my favorite songs by Cream. We're going to feature the band. We're going to talk a little bit about the history of the band, where they came from, kind of how they evolved, the albums they put out. Now, this is a band that don't have a massive or prodigious output. They only had 4 albums, 2 full studio albums, and the last 2 albums were kind of a hybrid between studio and live material. Great material, but even for a band of this nature, they had such a massive influence on the bands that came after. Cream is really dubbed the first 1960s supergroup, if you want to call it that. Let's talk about the band members first. We'll start off with Ginger Baker, the drummer, because I love drummers. Ginger Baker came from the Graham Bond organization and had been playing drums in various blues bands throughout the early to mid-'60s, as did Jack Bruce, who played with him. And they had met with Eric Clapton, of course, who was a guitarist who had played with the Yardbirds and the John Mayall Blues Breakers, and had some background there. And they met each other and they played live a couple of times. And the club scene in 65 and 66 was really amazing. Some of these people they were playing with, I'm reading about it, and I'm like, oh my God. Steve Winwood played with them in a band called Powerhouse with Eric Clapton. Obviously, we can see that influence later on with Blind Faith's formation in the early 70s. And then, of course, Jimi Hendrix had gone to London in 1965, 66, and wanted to play with Eric Clapton, and they jammed a little bit live. So all kinds of gestation taking place for musicians. But we're not there to talk about this. We'll talk about Cream. So what happens here is that Ginger Baker and Jack Bruce had been kind of disenfranchised with the Graham Bond organization. I guess he had drug issues and problems, and the band had kind of fallen apart a little bit, and they just basically were not getting the coverage that they needed. They met up with Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton had seen Jack Bruce perform live a couple times, and they wanted to play together. So, and of course, Eric Clapton from the Yardbirds fame at this time, and John Mayall, of course, they decided to get together, and they put out an album in late 66, early 67. The band went through a couple of incarnations of names and stuff, but finally they came up with the band Cream, and the first album in 1967, early 67, was, of course, Fresh Cream. Amazing album. This album really put them on the map. It has 2 big hits on it, radio hits, I Feel Free and I'm So Glad, which of course were big radio hits for them. But NSU is a really good song. Sleepy Time Time is really, really good. Cat Squirrel had some great guitar work on it. And then, of course, the great piece of Toad by Ginger Baker with the drum explosions in that. It's just amazing music. This was really an influential band because you really start to see a harder edge of blues, rock and roll, really kicking some ass in the sound thing. You didn't get that kind of love me la la da da music that was going on basically with the Beatles from 63, 64, 65, and a lot of bands that were kind of covering that. This was new. This was like in your face, loud. It was cool. It was the cool music. The cool kids listened to Cream. They're like, whoa. Now, that album, completely studio, very good album, puts them on the map. And then they follow up with another amazing album in 1968. And that, of course, is the legendary Disraeli Gears. Disraeli Gears, really, what an album. This is the 180 gram. I got over at Max J Records, of course. Great album. It's got the psychedelia on it and everything. This album is loaded with a couple of hits, but just loaded with great music. I mean, the first has got Strange Brew on it, Sunshine You'll Love, Swallow Bar, those 3 big radio hits, and then, of course, my personal favorite, Tales of Brave Ulysses. Just love that song. Mother's Lament is on this, which is really good. A very hidden gem on this one. And then Dance the Night Away, interesting song, kind of a cool bluesy song, that's really cool. And We're Going Wrong, again, loaded with great music. And this is really their last pure studio album in 1968 when they did that. That album put propelled them into stardom once Disraeli Gears came out and Sunshine You Love. They were up there as one of the big English invasion groups. And it's interesting that when they're at their peak is when they break up, which is like, wow, you thought, what could these guys have done? I think it was kind of a precarious situation when they first got together, I think, personally, but again, this leads to the third album, which does have some live material on it, but also has some studio material, and that, of course, is Wheels of Fire, which comes out in late 68, early 69, depending on what side of the pond you were on. This is just absolutely amazing. This has White Room on it for new pressed studio material. It has Politician, Born Under a Bad Sign, Sitting on Top of the World, Passing the Time. Just very solid studio material on this. But it also includes some live at the Fillmore stuff, which would be Crossroads, which is really, really good, Spoonful, Train Time, and then, of course, Toad, which was from their first album, Fresh Cream. This album is very, very good. It's interesting that it's a hybrid, and it does have little inklings of Disraeli Gears with the psychedelia, similar color pattern on the inside. That's what I love about albums. You can see this, you can see the connection, with the color between this is Disraeli Gears, and you can see the interior of this, and then they went with the black and white on the back, and then on the front. See, this is why I love vinyl, because you can really delve into the actual music and when it came out. You're not looking at little CDs, you're not looking at little pictures on your phone, but you're looking at the actual, the material that came out. That was a great album, and then the band started showing fissures. They were starting to break up. They're not going to stay together. And then their last album is really just basically a farewell tour. It's half live and half studio, and this, of course, is called Goodbye Cream. Very good, and we knew where this band was going. They knew they were going to break up. This, of course, has live versions of I'm So Glad and Politician on it, and then Sitting on Top of the World and Badge. And then they have Badge is a new song, which is that's one of the new pieces on here, which becomes one of their standards, of course, later on. It becomes one of the big radio hits, and What a Bring Down. Again, a solid album. This is really kind of, showing with the band, and just kind of like, okay, they're going to break up, and a lot of people were somewhat disappointed. I could see, I agree. They put out quite a few hits for such what a prodigious output for such a small window of time. Basically late 66, early 67 to late 68, early 69, and that's it. That's Cream. Now, I'll give you my rankings on the albums. Pretty simple. I'm going to go from worst to best. Not as hard as 4 albums. It's not very difficult. And mind you, none of these albums do I consider bad. They're all great. But obviously, I would go with ranking number 4 would be Goodbye Cream. It's still a good album. I just think it's just a little afterthought. It does have Badge on it, and it does have a couple new songs on it, pretty good. But it's just them rehashing some of their old live stuff, and it's just like it's filling up an album is what they're doing. They put 1 or 2 singles out. In that day, they could have just put out Badge as a single or a 45, but they didn't. They decided to put out an album. Polydor wanted the album, so they put the album out. Again, this is their weakest album, I think, but by far not a bad album at all in any stretch of the imagination. Okay, that's number 4. Number 3 would be Wheels of Fire. Again, suffers from some of the same as Goodbye Cream, but the difference is that you get 2 albums in this, and you're getting a lot more new material. And this has White Room on it. This has Politician, Born Under a Bad Sign. This has a lot of really, really good stuff. So this is an excellent album. And the Live at Fillmore session is amazing. And it's just worth the price of admission for the Toad, Ginger Baker Fine. That's just the drum solo. Oh, it's just amazing. But very, very good. Again, now the last 2. My number 2 and number 1, I had to think about this. This could change by any given day, but today, right now, in this time, this space, this planet, where we are now, number 2 is Fresh Cream. I do love their first album. Don't get me wrong. I Feel Free. I'm So Glad. It's got that new, fresh sound. I really, really liked it. But yeah, this would be number 2. Great album. And then, of course, that leaves us with number 1 album, which I think most of you will probably agree with. Their number 1 album by far is Disraeli Gears. It's the must-have album. It has the 3 big hits on it. And it has my personal favorite song, Tales of Brave Ulysses. But it has Strange Brew on it. It's got Sunshine of Your Love. It's got Swall Bar. This got so many good stuff on it. So this is just really, just an amazing, amazing album. So this would be number one. So now, to recap on this, let's talk a little bit about, we got number one, we have Disraeli Gears. Number two is Fresh Cream. Number three is Wheels of Fire, and number four is Goodbye Cream. Again, there were various albums that came out after. There were compilation albums, greatest hits, and then there were some live compilation albums, but I just wanted to do the studio albums of what the band did of new material, and this is it. And again, what a powerhouse band. Really the first dub supergroup of the 60s. They influenced everyone, and the more I delve into my newer music, well, when I say newer, 70s and 80s, they're all influenced by Ginger Baker. I mean, people like, Carl Palmer and Neil Peart and John Bonham and Led Zeppelin and all the bands that came after, they were all influenced by Cream. Cream really, really set the mark for a lot of these bands to follow that came thereafter. And they really were quite a band of the time, and all three of them talented, and they really set the stage for the power trio of three members. And we can name the power trios that come after Cream. I mean, we have Emerson, Lake and Palmer, we have The Police, we have Rush, we have The Jam. I mean, all these trio bands that were really, really good. There's others too. I don't mean to fail to mention those, but they are. But so this week, this month at Max J Records again, over here at Max J Records, we're going to feature Cream albums for 10% off if you mention the ad and you mention the show, and give us a like. Send up some questions if you have. Do you have any stories? Anybody out there that's seen Cream live? That'd be so cool. They did have a prodigious live shows from the late 60s, obviously before my time. I was born the year that Disraeli Gears came out. So if any of you out there older have seen them live, that'd be cool to hear the stories. Tell us about them, how great they were. I would love to hear it. And any questions and shout out, give us a like on YouTube, and I hope to see you guys. And we will be featuring on my next one. Hopefully we'll be doing Foreigner and Journey. I have them loaded up, ready to go, and we'll be doing a countdown on them, very similar to Cream. But I think we did justice to this band. All right, that's all for today. See you guys next week.